So hi there, welcome to lesson 4. Welcome to our discussions on errors, how to prevent them and manage them. Okay, so let's take a look at this screen. I'm sure you must have seen something like this before, where there's something in red and you cannot go any further. So when that happens, usually the do file command stops, the processing stops there and cannot go forward until you fix the errors. Oftentimes, now that does not mean you cannot skip an error and go. In advanced levels, yes, you can, but most of the time, the programming or the processing stops until it is fixed. So let's just take a closer look at that. We have mentioned that. So this is the type you see. So you see when an error happens, most of the time, some red text defining what happened, trying to express it. Then there's a blue text that is usually hyperlinked, which is called an error code. This error code will provide further insight into the error or the type of error. So in this particular class, we will not waste so much time. I don't want to call it waste of time. We will not invest so much time on the error codes. We will only focus on understanding how and why they happen, and then how we can minimize them and prevent them. And I'm going to share with you 4 basic principles that may have been violated, and those principles have sub principles, so that you don't get scared and you're able to prevent it from happening, and in the event they happen, you're able to adjust accordingly. So let's zoom in to these 4 things. So there are 4 things here. When in Stata you are referring to something that does not exist, and it exists in quotes, it may exist but it does not exist where you said it is. So it's like looking for snow in Nigeria. There's no snow here. So when you tell Stata tab snow, let me use that word, it says it does not exist. But it does exist in Europe. So in some other folder, the file may be there. In some other data set, the variable may be there. So when it says it does not exist, it's also contextual. So I would explain that. Then creating what has been created. If something has been created before has a problem, then there's something we call the sequence or syntax violation, or improper format or data processing. So usually one of these 4 principles, in my own experience for the last 15 years working with data, may have been the issue. So let's start with the first one, referring to something that does not exist. If a folder does not exist, an error will show. Now I kept on saying, if the folder is not where it's supposed to be, and you say go get snow in Nigeria, you won't find it. Go get the same thing with a file, the same thing with a command. For example, Stata does not have a command called jump. So if you say jump variable blah blah blah, it will tell you it doesn't exist. Now, to make that clear about existing, so they may technically exist, but it's not, how do I explain this? It's not properly spelled. So if you are looking for a command called browse and you don't spell browse properly, it may tell you the command does not exist. If you're looking for a file called Nigeria and you forgot to put the A, you have a problem. If the Nigeria you're also looking for, sometimes, not all the time, this is for files, but for variable names, we had told you that in module 2, if the variable name is in proper case and you are using lowercase or uppercase, the tell you does not exist, or the variable is outrightly missing. If you look through the variable, no spelling errors, nothing, it's the same thing. Or like we said, it's in the improper location. So you copy the file path here. I'm just trying to give an example here, and then you paste. So if I go back here, I'm just trying to copy a file path to all the modules we have here. Now if I go to the next slide, I paste them and I want to change directory. Just changing of directory, that's what I want to do. Let me zoom in a bit here so you can see it. Now I have removed S. When I remove S and I run the do file, So what I will do is rather just give an example with all these slight alterations. So in the first case, I copied the variable. Now there's an s missing here. Yeah, s. Now here there's a double x here, and then so let's just change and edit. Let's have three variants. I just want to change the directory, and now I'm using capital letters. So this also, let's just check how it works. Okay, so just need to alter a few things, just variants, slight things. Like here in the second line there's double x, here we just made it capital letters. So just to show you that those variants could be the problem, and here there is no s at the end. So let's run. Sorry, you see there is an error here already showing when you run the first line. Let me see if I can zoom in across both of them at the same time. When you run the second line, there's an error too because there's double x and it says end of do file. Now this third line works and the fourth line also works. So basically that's how those definitions happen. So you have to be very clear with your spellings. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, where we also look at what the challenge could be. So now we're looking at variables and it says make does not exist. Make exists. So when you browse, you don't have a problem, it comes out clean. When you BR, make, which is still the abbreviation, it goes. Let's go. Now when you browse capital in caps, and run, it says the command does not exist. Can you see? It's unrecognized because you did that. Now this is browse and make. Make is capital letters, make in the data is small letters. When you run it, it says variable make not found. So it's correct because of that. Then you did not spell browse well here with a W, and then it says command browse is unrecognized. Do you understand? But if you abbreviate, you find that. So let's go ahead and do that. So it shows. Now if you browse Mac, it will also show because there is no name similar, so it shows. And would also explain that in an advanced class, but not now. We'll just share it in the tips section. Okay, then let's browse the last one, which is with, and run again. And it says variable with not found. There's nothing called with here. So basically, those are two examples that help us. Now let's move on to creating what has been created. If you feel maybe it's a bit too slow, you can pause the video and take some time to just absorb what is going on. So if there's a folder already created that is called a name, it will protest, it will show an error. If there's a file that already has the name that you want to put without replacing, it will show an error. If there's a variable already and generating another variable the same exact name, it will also show an error. So that's how it basically works. So let's look at an example closely here. See if I can zoom in as fast as I can. Okay. Yep. So we're trying to generate a variable that has been generated before. Now when you do that, make is already there. So it says variable make is already defined. So you cannot generate a variable that has been generated. So we can watch this closely, how it is being done, and hopefully be able to gain as much understanding. So you cannot create a variable. I need to just repeat that slowly so that you can see it. You cannot create something that has been created. Make has already been created in the data set, so it cannot be created again. That's why you see that error. And then you have to be very careful anytime you are doing stuff like that. Okay, so now let's look at another reason. When there's a syntax or sequence violation. Now when you say you want to append a file, you say append using file name. This is the sequence that is approved. Merge one var list using file name. This is for merge command. Use command is use comma clear. So these are the syntax, and you find that in help. So if you really want to use it, you have to also just look at these three. Here file name comes after using. Here var list comes after the one-to-one, and here we have clear. Well, these are wrong. This is right, this is wrong. Now when you don't order the syntax the proper way, you will get into errors. You will get into serious errors. So let me do that again. This is right, this is correct, but this is wrong. So when you are saying append file name using, you're already wrong. Or you are saying merge var list then one, no, the var list comes after one before the using and before the file name, and then there's no use file replace. Wrong. It should be use file name clear. It's not a viable option, and when you try it, you will see it yourself. Errors will just show. So let's move on to the final one, which is the improper date format or data processing. And this is why you must always prepare your data or create your data, make it ready. So the make data is a string, and you want to perform a numeric analysis on it. You would get that response type mismatch. If something is a string and you're trying to do a mathematical calculation on it, there will be problems. If something is a mathematical calculation, or or a numeric variable rather, and you are trying to do some string analysis on it, then you would also have challenges. So these are the things that you have to be careful about, and that's why a number must be a number, a string must be a string, a categorical variable must be a categorical variable, because there are certain limitations if you do it wrong, and you will definitely get errors. So basically that is it here, and that's what we're trying to do with that. We're trying to run it and make you see the errors that can show. So we have mentioned this before, but just to help you again, there are continuous, categorical, and date variables. Make sure that you get your type very correctly, and they are string variables. Don't forget them. You cannot process a date as a string. You cannot process a continuous variable as a string. You cannot process a string as a date. So once they're in their real and raw form, then there are many things you can do very, very correctly. So please note this. So I just want to say everything we have explained here too is just the tip of the iceberg, just the very basics. So there's a particular masterclass on this that we will definitely put up very soon, just for errors, so that you get it, especially if you have them from time to time. So I think we have over 100 errors and their codes, but if you understand the principles, I'm sure you'll be able to really overcome and manage them. So this is where we stop. I think I've given you enough to help you know what could be the cause of the error and how you can prevent it or manage it. So that's it. Basically, we have to move on and just remember just those same principles about these variable names, the labels, and the naming sequence. Very key, very, very, very key. So, and that was why price had a problem. It had been defined. This was the first slide we had. It had been defined. So I'm sure you now know why you see some of these things. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope you have learned something very important. In lesson 5, we will be going to learning about context. Very powerful principle there, and it's very important that you apply it in your career. Looking forward to seeing you in lesson 5. Till then, bye.